It is in the extreme minority where situations have happened and do happen, where a good person has to commit a crime, something that's worthy of being arrested for. We're not talking jaywalking. We're not talking petty littering. We're talking rob a bank. It is extremely rare where somebody robs a bank because there's somebody at home who has their wife and kids being held hostage and they're forced to do this crime. This is movie type of stuff or TV type of stuff. It is extremely rare where somebody robs a liquor store because their parent at home with cancer needs a certain amount of money in order for a surgery that's got to happen within the next 3 days or they die. These are scenarios that are extremely rare. And these are the scenarios we look at as, oh man, this sucks. It is extremely rare where someone like Cain Velasquez finds out that his son is being molested by a guy who was arrested and then released within 48 hours. And then he goes out he's driving and sees the guy like, whoa, why is he out? And then tries to kill him. That is extremely rare, where we look at a crime and say, well, yeah, I understand. More importantly, it's rare that the people doing these things are doing them for a cause that we can say, yeah, well, I understand. These are instances that we know for a fact are like, okay, there's more to this. It's nuanced. But what doesn't happen is majority of the bank robbers, majority of the people carjacking aren't carjacking to get their wife to the hospital because she's in labor and your car's broken down and you're in this extremely poor position to not be able to do anything else. So you commit a violent crime or you commit a crime against the country in despair. Doesn't happen. You could say, yeah, it does. You just listed instances, yes. But that is not, percentage-wise, that is a statistical zero. It's extremely rare that people intentionally break the law and are in that circumstance where it can be justified based on an extreme circumstance. The only time we ignore people breaking the law and doing stuff like this is when it comes to the border. Even right now, where records amounts of fentanyl are coming across our border, we still give the benefit of the doubt to all the people coming across the border, as if they're all in that rare circumstance. I think they said in Eagle Pass, Texas, they're up to 3,000 border crossings a week that they're able to contact. 3,000 a week. Illegally coming to this country.
Shot earlier this morning just after sunrise in Quemado, Texas, just on the outskirts of Eagle Pass. This was a large single group of several hundred migrants that crossed illegally, about 300 of them coming across all at the same time as these smugglers continue pushing these groups across around sunrise every morning. As you can see, almost a very large majority of them were single adult men. And Texas DPS telling us they found and arrested 34 illegal immigrants who were hitching a ride on a train in the area. We often see this. These migrants will get on these trains in an effort to evade law enforcement and get deeper into the interior of the United States. Texas DPS saying they found 24 men and 10 women, all from Mexico. Tucson, Arizona sector. This is out of Douglas, Arizona, where border agents noticed a pickup truck crossing into the United States illegally in the desert. They stop it. They find 16 illegal immigrants being smuggled in this one pickup truck, which was being driven by a Mexican national. We saw numerous times yesterday groups of illegal immigrants crossing the river behind us, no Border Patrol agents around, and then they just walked into downtown Eagle Pass without ever being apprehended. Those are gotaways. And Border Patrol in this sector says they've been getting more than 3,000 gotaways here every single week.
Instead of saying, okay, this is a serious problem because we don't know who these people are, we treat them as if they're that husband whose wife is in labor and their car broke down yesterday and he has to get them to the hospital. We treat all of them as if they are the rare example of people breaking the law, which is our primary law in this country. The first thing you have to have in order to have a country is a border identifying it as a country. You don't have property without a fence and a border that says, hey, this is my home. If you call your state and say, hey, I need to identify my property lines, those lines have been identified as yours. This country has lines. Whether there's a giant barrier up in the position or in the space that those people are crossing, it's still there. Now, there are those who will argue, well, it's not our country, and that's not your house rightfully, it's on Indian land. No, it's theirs. You know why it's theirs? Because two reasons. Either they fought for it, in the case of a country, and won, or they purchased it. In this country, that's what we do with our homes. That's what identifies what's ours. When you get to another level of a home, outside of just the lot that it's on, there's another barrier, and that's called walls. You can argue, well, those walls shouldn't be there because that lot shouldn't be there because it's on Indian grounds. Whatever grounds you want to say, it's stolen land, blah, 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 blah. It's still their home. And now there's physical. So you have the identified area that shows that it is your property. And then you have the physical proof that shows that it's your property. I built walls here. You cannot just come through the front door because you have a claim or you think you have a claim. There's a process for that. There are laws for that. Now, I know you people don't respect those laws, but that doesn't take away from the fact that there are laws that say, no, you can't just walk into somebody's home and claim it. If you genuinely think or feel or know that it's your land, there is a process to go through. Only on our border, the U.S. borders, do we give the criminal the benefit of the doubt. And it's not like we're shooting them at the border to where you can say, yeah, but you don't want to make a mistake and kill somebody. We're just stopping them and saying, why are you coming across my border? You guys don't even want to do that. And that's where I have a problem with you. That lawlessness is only considered dangerous if it's an American white person who's walking into the U.S. Capitol, despite the fact that in some of those instances, Capitol Police are opening the door for them. Now you're worried about violence. Fentanyl killing millions of people? No one dying at the Capitol. Oh, emergency. What are we doing? What's going on? Threat to our democracy. So our democracy is based on, first, having an actual country, second, having laws, and third, having people follow those laws. That's how you have a democracy. You don't have a democracy without any of those three things. Because nothing can be enforced without laws, and nothing can be enforced when people don't follow those laws. And you can't have laws unless you're identifying where the laws apply. That's how you have federal laws. and state laws. So when somebody comes across the border, we don't just have a right to stop them and say, what are you doing here? We have an obligation, because you are now endangering my family. That's why I have locks on my doors. That's why I have firearms in my home. I have an obligation to protect them. The person coming through, I'm not going to assume they are in despair and they have to come in my home because they're being chased by a guy with a chainsaw. That is the extreme. That is the rare occasion that it would be justified for somebody to come banging on my door and yelling into my Vivid camera, please open the door, open the door, open the door, and still trying to force their way in. That is extremely rare. That is not how you don't treat everyone as if that is what's going on and we must let them in and then find out whether or not they're legitimate. That's how we're treating the border. There are lines. They have it on camera now. There are lines. It's thermal camera. So this is what drove me crazy when Obama would talk about the drones and all that. We have technology to use drones to find out who's crossing. When he used to say that, I would say, okay, so then when you identify them, what do you do if you don't have the wall and you don't have people there to do something about the information that you're gathering? Because according to the left, the only reason they want those drones there is so they can just count the people. We got to figure out our new demo maps. We got to get these people's driver's licenses. They're all under despair, and we need to help all of them. And to them, it's on a rare occasion that a guy's bringing across drugs, except for the fact that now we know for a fact there is a record amount of drugs coming across the southern border. We have no idea how many of those women and girls were raped and sold in their path and journey to this country. In fact, because of our assumption of innocence, which we should only have here for American citizens, we are assuming there are hundreds of women per day that we know have been trafficked. How? Because the only way to come here is if you're trafficked. We are literally sanctioning human trafficking. Think about that for 1 second. We have advocates begging us to leave these people alone. Let them be human trafficked. Let it happen. Why do we care so much about these people being trafficked? There used to be another word for human trafficking and coerced behaviors, meaning rape or being sold or being moved illegally. It used to be called slavery. We fight about it and we still talk about it to this day. This happened hundreds of years ago. But now, today, on our own border, we have slavery. We have people who have a wristband that's pink or blue or green that identifies the amount of work they have to do for an illegal drug cartel in order to be made whole. Indentured slavery, indentured servitude. The problem is these people don't have any control over it, so that's what makes it slavery. And no, there's no guarantee that the cartel is going to say, okay, you paid us, you're free to go. Because now there's a good chance they're in MS-13 or they're already within the drug trade. So they didn't just break the law coming to our country. They are now breaking laws within our countries, after the fact. But we are going to say, well, but we like these people. We love these people. We love them so much, we want them to be trafficked by the worst human beings on the planet who would chop our head off if we did anything to them, who would shoot us just to make an example of us. That's how much we love illegal aliens. We want them to go through hell, virtual hell, to get here. That's how much we care. We care so much, we want the daughters and mothers to be raped. And we don't even want to ask questions until they're here. But we want them to go through the process that requires all of these things to happen to them. I'm sure they're being raped for a good reason. Why would they put themselves through that? As if they know what they're going to go through on their path. As if they're saying, I know that I'm going to be raped, that my daughter's going to be raped. I still have to make this trek. As if we are assuming that they want to make this trek and that they're not being forced for drugs. And that they're not the person in the position who's being forced while their family is at home being held hostage. We're assuming that that's not the case now. It's only the case when it works for our narrative.
Is it that the program itself is illegal, or is it the way that President Obama implemented it that it was illegal? In other words, Congress should have done it.
Hi, John. Yes, a federal appeals court in New Orleans has found that the Obama administration did not have the legal authority to create the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA program, back in 2012. This is the second federal court, John, that has now declared the program illegal. But importantly, as I think you mentioned, the appeals court today decided to leave the program intact, in place for current recipients. There are about nearly 600,000 immigrants who were brought to the U.S. as children who do not have legal status, who are currently enrolled in DACA. They will be allowed still to renew their applications.
Everyone uses their anecdotal situation. The illegal aliens I know are good. Yeah, because you're a good person. How many murderers, rapists, and drug dealers do you know? Probably not many. You know why? You're a good person. That's what you're doing when you're talking about illegal immigration. Yeah, but I know this person, or this person's in my family, or it's my parents, or it's my whatever. They're a good person. Yes, that's not who we're talking about. We're talking about the guy who would chop off somebody's head. We're talking about the person who actually worked for the people who got the illegals over. That's a literal human trafficker. We're talking about drug dealers. We're talking about MS-13. We're talking about terrorists who come across. We're not talking about the person you know and love. This isn't about you, and this isn't about the people you know. We're talking about identifying everyone so that we know, no, that person, they're good. We need to figure out a path. No, that person needs to go away or be locked up or be put down. They've killed so many people. You can't do the identifying process by using your heart and saying, oh my God, but I love this person. I know this person. They're good. So are you. That's not what we're talking about.
Police arresting the suspect nearly 200 miles from the scene. Authorities say he had been living in the U.S. illegally and was trying to escape back to Mexico. During an emotional news conference, authorities revealing new details about the death of Officer Ronil Singh, shot and killed during a traffic stop just after Christmas.
So we have places like California infesting Arizona. Why do I label it that way? Because they are forcing their values onto people who don't agree with them. How do I know they don't agree with them? It was a red state. It is now blue. They're being infiltrated. And these people are leaving where they're from, their blue state, because their policies failed. I don't like the taxes. Well, why do you have the taxes? Because we have an open border. Why do you have an open border? Because we're really compassionate for all these women, and we want them to be raped, and we want their kids to be trafficked. That sounds weird, but okay. So why are you here? It's so much cheaper, and it's really, really nice, and you can actually breathe. The air is really nice. Okay, so then why don't you go back home? Nah, it's too crowded. Well, why is it crowded? Those illegals. We don't know how many people are coming across. Do something about it. Yeah, but we want to be sanctuary cities. So do you want to fix the problem? I don't have to fix the problem. I'll just move to Arizona. Well, now that you're here, you're going to respect our laws? no, we really think that you guys should change your laws. You're not being compassionate enough. You really should support human trafficking, drug smuggling, and rape. Well, that's kind of weird. Arizonans, you're allowing this. Even Austin, Texas, Houston, Texas, for that matter. You're allowing this to happen. These are the people who are moving in, where they're coming from. If they're coming from California, they should be forced to assimilate to us, not the other way around. So what does that mean? If you have people coming in from an extreme place, you know they're going to vote. They're going to register. That means you have to represent where you're from and say, no, we reject those values because they're not values. They're whims and emotions, and we don't do that here in Texas, Florida, Arizona, New Mexico. We don't do that in these places. Instead, they're allowing these people who don't respect borders, who don't respect language, who don't respect culture, to dictate to them and change the structure of their homes. It's like my yard and having somebody come over and say, I don't like your yard. I need you to move this part of your yard over 3 feet. Why would I do that? Because that's what we do back home. But you're not home. Go back home. That's how we need to address this. We're not doing that. We're allowing states. We're allowing states now not only to be transformed, and that happens. Demos change. I get that. But they're not even able to count the votes. Why? Today, when I'm making this video, and it's not going to be released today, but today, it is Friday, I don't know what today's date is. I don't know what today's date is, but it's Friday. The election happened like 4 days ago. I believe it's 4 days ago now. Why are they still counting votes? How is it our technology is so supreme to where it was in, say, the 50s? But in the 50s, they can count all the votes the same day. By the next day at noon, everyone knew what the election results were. Now we're in the age of technology where American Idol can count 10 million votes live in real time. But Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, Pennsylvania, they're still counting votes 4 days later. Something seems fishy. It doesn't make sense. Something is wrong. And I would take it further than saying something is wrong. Something is not right, and it's on purpose. Election night has always been election night. It wasn't election week or election 20 days. And the times have not changed to require it. There are no more disabled people now than there were in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s. We definitely didn't have any technology like we have now. The difference is identifying people now in an act of supposed concern that people are being disenfranchised. We won't even require those people to say who they are. So how do you know they're being disenfranchised? I have a gut feeling that this isn't working well. That's not how life works. You can't fix a problem if you refuse to identify it. And when it comes to elections, the left literally refuses to identify the problem. They just want to go off of their feelings. Now, if you have feelings, you're an election denier. When they do, it's a genuine concern of disenfranchisement of black people and minorities. They always use us to push agendas. They don't really care about the results. They just use us to push their agendas. So when there's violence in the streets and black kids are being murdered, we don't care about the kid being murdered. We care about how other people feel about it. I have to have a conversation. with my adopted black child as a white man who's really, really nice and took a black child into my home. I now have to have this horrible conversation about how they should deal with the police. Okay, so what are you doing for the black community? Nothing. I can't go over there. I live in a gated community. But when my son goes out of that community, he's a target of the police. They only care when it impacts them. Now tear down that gate in that community and watch how many police show up. But in the black community, we don't want police. They turn it into this thing where they say, black people, they don't want police. They don't need police. The police are killing them. I saw it on CNN. There was a whole video. How long was the video? 20 seconds. So you don't know what happened. I know the kid's dead, and that's all that matters. Even one life should be saved. What about on the border? Wow. Doesn't matter. They found dead Mexicans in a truck. That's the position we're in right now with illegal immigration. We only know that supposedly they're the most desperate humans on the planet. So desperate that we should allow them to be human trafficked and raped and extorted and coerced into dealing drugs. That's how much we care about them. With friends like that,